Hello, I'm cKnoor, and it's time to go over the biggest differences between Blood Bowl 2 and Blood Bowl 3 that you need to know about if you're returning to the game. Remember that Games Workshop released a new rule set not too long ago, and Blood Bowl 3 is based on that rule set. Now, since the start of development of Blood Bowl 3 and this rule set, Games Workshop has added even more rules that are not necessarily present in the current version of Blood Bowl 3. But the devs have been pretty clear that the intention is to make Blood Bowl 3 and the tabletop rule set essentially the same. So let's jump into game, and I'll talk a lot. Blood Bowl 3 comes with 12 races, and then there will be updates a few times a year, which adds a Blood Pass and the access to another race. But starting out, we have some new ones that you've not seen in Blood Bowl 2. Imperial Nobility and Black Orcs, and then we have some combo teams here, like Chaos Renegade and Old World Alliance, that uses players from other existing teams to get a mashup, essentially. Most of these rosters have changed compared to Blood Bowl 2, so it's worth looking at them. You won't be able to buy the same things for the same cost because a lot of the players have also been recosted. One other thing to keep in mind when it comes to recosting players is that in previous iterations of Blood Bowl, most of the cost of players have been in 10,000s. So a normal lineman probably cost 50,000 gold, but now they're actually down to 5,000 differences. So the untrained troll here and the thrower each costs 65 and 115 rather than, say, 70 and 120. It matters when buying players and making your team. You may also notice that some of the stats are different here. In Blood Bowl 3, there is now a passing stat, which handles, you guessed it, passing. They're also displayed differently. Now, Agility 3 used to be just a straight up, from 0 to 6 in theory, and now it's a plus stat instead. Essentially, they've swapped it around, so previous iterations you had to always roll and get a result of 7. So if you had Agility 3 and you were trying to dodge away, you rolled a 3, and then +1 on the dodge, you'd get 7, and then you'd succeed. They've now swapped it, so this stat lists what you need to roll to succeed with your roll, before, of course, modifiers and stuff like that. If a player doesn't have a stat, it means that they can't do the thing. For example, these big unblockers here, they don't have a passing stat, so they're not allowed to pass. They've also swapped over armor value in the same way. It's now a bit clearer in that sense. It used to be, of course, most of these orcs would have armor value 9, which essentially meant that you had to roll 10 or more. Now the stat says this is what you need to roll or more. So the actual armor value is the same, it's just displayed differently. Oh, and one final note on stats. The movement stat is now capped to 9, as we can see here on these gutter runners. Even if you were to try and get a stat increase on them, it wouldn't work. They'd still be at 9. So no more one-turn gutter runners. Real sad, but some people are probably very happy with this change. Another thing to keep in mind that might not be apparent how important it is at the start is that winnings have changed, meaning the amount of money you get at the end of the game. In Blood Bowl 2, you rolled a die, and then you added some bonuses depending on if you won, if you got a certain amount of touchdowns and that kind of stuff. The way it works now is that both players add their dedicated fans together, divide that by 2, and add the amount of touchdowns they've scored, multiply that by 10,000, and that's the amount of money you get. So if you have a lot of dedicated fans, your opponent has a lot of dedicated fans, you're going to get a lot of money regardless of if you won or how many touchdowns you scored. And of course the opposite is also true. If you come up against an opponent that has just 1 out of 6 dedicated fans, they're not going to bring in as much money as you might have liked, which means it's now kind of you have to make the decision if you want to buy dedicated fans at the start at team creation, because having a lot of dedicated fans early is going to give you more money quicker. Another big change is that the cost of leveling up your players is different, but also the way you do it is different. So let's jump into this. Let's just look at this human renegade lineman here. And normally, of course, when you get to 6 SVP, you roll, and depending on the roll you get, you then get to pick a skill. Now, instead, you buy skills whenever you want, as long as you have the SVP to support it. So, here we can see that we have 0 SVP, but it would cost us 6 SVP to buy any of these skills. Or we can pick or not pick, but we can randomly roll for one of these skills, and that will only cost us 3 SVP. Now, the second level up after the first one, of course, costs more, and so on. You can see that if we were to go straight for characteristics, that would cost 18 SVP, and we would randomly get one of these. It is weighted though, so it's very unlikely that you'd get strength. Also, getting strength means the cost of the player increases massively, so realistically you're not going to see very many players that have bought strength increases. But have the skills changed? Yes, some of them have changed quite a lot. Here in general skills, there aren't actually that many big changes. Yes, Dirty Player is now Dirty Player +1, which indicate that this specific skill gives +1 on the Dirty Player, foul action. There are star players that have Dirty Player +2, for example. So that's why that's listed the way it has been listed. Over in strength, we have some new skills. We have armbar here that adds extra +1 to armor rolls if someone fails a dodge roll away from this player. The big one I think to keep in mind is Brawler, because on the Black Orc team, the big Black Orcs come with Brawler when you buy them, and it lets you reroll a both down result on 1 dice on a block. So not a blitz, on a block. Also, Pile Driver here is no longer the Pile Driver you know. It now lets a player that has knocked someone down, but then, failed to knock them out, do a foul action. It specifically says it's a free foul action, which is true, but you're still limited to 1 foul action per turn. And also, I don't know who you'd ever put this on, considering it's in strength and not, agility, which the foul players normally have access to. But it's here. The main takeaway is that piling on is no longer here, as it were. Which also actually leads us to Claw Palm not being a thing, because you're not allowed to put both Claw and Mighty Blow into a combination. They're both here, but this should limit the bash teams quite a lot. They're still going to murder the agility teams, of course, because Mighty Blow is still good, and if you already have armor value 7, then you're kind of screwed. But hey, Claw Palm, no longer a thing. Over in agility, we have stuff like defensive, which negates guard. There's definitely times where you should look out for this as a thing, but I haven't played around with it enough to actually know how important it is, and more importantly, if it's a skill that you want to pick early on your ball carrier, or if this is like 4 or 5 skills down the line. Sneaky Git also has been improved. You're now allowed to move after the foul, which makes Sneaky Git a lot more worthwhile, and it might actually be a thing where I possibly pick that before picking Dirty Player. Possibly. Maybe not. But yes, big differences. And Safe Pair of Hands means that if you have Safe Pair of Hands and you get knocked down, you get to decide where the ball scatters. Meanwhile, over in passing, some of the skills have been split in 2. For example, Accurate here is now only accurate in that it gives +1 on pass rolls. On Quick Pass and Short Pass, if you want to pass longer than that, you actually have to pick Cannoneer, which is +1 on Long Pass and Long Bomb. There's also Fumblerooski, which means you can just, you know, place the ball on a square and it's an auto turnover. Lastly, we have mutations, and there are a few things that are different here, but not massively so. We have Iron Skin, for example, which just negates Claw. Once again, I'm not sure who you put this on, because surely you'd just pick Claw first, but, you know, maybe it's a late skill. And then we have Monstrous Mouth, which is really easy to say if you're Swedish, which is just a catch reroll, and strip ball can't be used. So it's a catch, sure hands in one-ish, except for the fact that, you know, you don't have an easier time picking the ball up. Made it in-game, and here's a thing I want to show off if you're used to playing Blood Bowl 2 and you're moving on to Blood Bowl 3. In Blood Bowl 2, you can do actions essentially, you know, when you want to do them, specifically when it comes to passing and handoff. In Blood Bowl 3, specifically, you actually have to mention what action you're doing at the start of an activation. So, for whatever reason, this blitzer here decided to catch the ball on kickoff, which wasn't my plan. But rather than have it dodge away, I'm going to use this lineman to blitz this goblin off, so I can then use the blitzer to throw a catch. If I want to do that, it works the same in Blood Bowl 2. I can just click this and it works, or we can click down here for the blitz activation, and then I have to declare who I'm blitzing. So I cannot change my mind in the middle of a blitz. In Blood Bowl 2, I could just activate my blitz, and then I can run and blitz whoever I wanted. That is not the case anymore. So I specifically need to click on this, and then validate that with space, and now I'm allowed to move. But I'm not allowed to block, or blitz rather, anyone else than this specific goblin that I've actually marked. I can ignore the block part and just run this guy over somewhere else if I wanted to, but of course I'm not going to do that because I want to get rid of this guy. Well, that was nice. We'll just stay put here. There we go. We broke armor, and nothing more. Okay, so now, and this is kind of important. This guy's holding the ball. If I just move him now, like if I were to go over here, I'm not allowed to do a handoff because I'm using the move action rather than the handoff action. So if I wanted to pass, I have to decide it now. And you can do it down here. There's also a Hot Wheel somewhere that I keep forgetting about. But let's say I want to pass. So I'll select this guy, we'll press 4, and we get this much cooler rangefinder. But that's neat. So let's go over here. And now I can pass to this guy. Holy shit. Look how good they are. And if I wanted to hand off, it changes to the handoff action, but that's something I have to do at the start. I can't move like this and be like, oh, cool, I'm going to hand off to this guy. Because at this point, because I didn't select the handoff at the start, I'm not allowed to hand off. It doesn't work. So that's something to keep in mind. Very important change that's going to take some time to get used to, but it's here. There are, of course, a lot more changes, but I didn't want to make this video too long. I think these are the big ones. You want to double check some other things. Leap has changed. You can now jump over prone players even if you don't have leap. It's an agility roll, so it's probably not going to come into play as often, but it is important to know about. So, you know, see you on the pitch. Oh, you're still here. If you want more Blood Bowl content, there's probably some links over here, and if you want even more, consider subscribing. Just click the button. It's free, I assume. Like, you know, it is free. I'd appreciate it very much. Cool, thanks, bye.